The first book of the Holy Grail is the Book of Gawain. Tony, to be casual and have the wish to heal. Gawain, I think, had that when he saw the sick king squirming around like a half-cooked eel on a platter, asking a riddle only maybe ghostmen could answer. His riddled body, heal it how? Gawain, no ghost man, guest who could not gather anything. That was an easy grail. Later shot a green knight in a dead forest. That was an easy answer. No king, no riddle. In some kind of castle, some kind of knight played chess with an invisible chess player. A maiden, naturally. You can hear the sound of wood on the board and some kind of night breathing. It was another spoiled quest. George said to me that the only thing he thought was important in chess was killing the other king. I had accused him of lack of imagination. I talked of fun and imagination, but I wondered about the nature of poetry, since it was some kind of knight and an invisible chess player, and they had been playing chess in the Grail Castle. The Grail is the opposite of poetry. It fills us up instead of using us as a cup, dead drink from. The Grail, the cup Christ bled into, and the cup of plenty in Irish mythology. The poem, opposite, us, unfulfilled. These worlds make the friendliness of human to human seem as close as the cup to the lip. Savage in their pride, the beasts pound around the forest perilous. 4. Everyone is impressed with courage, and when he fought him, he won. Who won? I'm not sure, but one was wearing red armor and one black armor. I'm not sure about the colors, but they were looking for a cup or a poem. Everyone of each of the worlds is impressed with courage. I'm not sure if either of them were human, or what they were looking for could be described as a cup or a poem, or why either of them fought. They made a loud noise in the forest, and the ravens gathered in trees. You were almost sure they were ravens. 5. On the sea, there was never an ocean Grail legend. There is a boat. There is always one lone person on it sailing, Widdershins. His name is Kate or Bob or Mike or Dora, and his sex is almost as obscure as his history. But he will be met by a ship of singing women who will embalm him with nard and spice and all of the hallows, as the ocean in the far distance. 6. They are still looking for it. Poetry and magic see the world from opposite ends. One cock forward, the other ass forward. All over Britain, but what a relief it would be to give all this up and find surcease in somebody's soul and body. Thus said Merlin, unwillingly, who saw through time. 7. Perversed, turned against the light. The Grail, they said, is achieved by steady compromise, and on ending, the prize that they're at the bottom of the rainbow. Follow the invisible markings process-wise. I, Gawain, who are no longer human but a legend, followed the markings. Did more or less what they asked. My name is now a symbol for shame. I, Gawain, who once was a knight of the Grail in the dark forest. It's the end of the Book of Gawain. The Book of Percival. Fool, killer, lurks between the branches of every tree. Bird language. Fooled by nature, I accepted the quest gratefully, played the fool. Fool, killer, in the branches waiting. Left home. Fool killer left home too, followed me. Fool killer thinks that just before the moment I will find the Grail, he will catch me. Poor little boy in the forest, dancing. 2. Even the forest felt deserted when he left it. What nonsense. The enormous trees, the lakes with carp in them, the wolves and the badgers, they should feel deserted for a punk kid who has left them. Even the forest felt deserted. There were no leaves dropping, or sounds anybody could hear. The wind met resistance but no noise. The sky could not be heard through the water. Percival, fool like badger, pine tree, broken water, gone. 3. Ship of fools, the wise man said to me. I used to work in Chicago In a department store, I said, the wise man never knowing there would be a ship whose toy sails, rail-bearing, would have to support me all the loves of my life. Each impossible choice I had been making, wave upon wave. Fool, I could hear them shouting, for we were becalmed in some impossible harbor, Grail and me, and in impossible armor the spooks that bent the ship forwards and backwards. 4. If someone doesn't fight me, I will have to wear this armor all of my life. I looked like the woodsman in the Oz books, rusted beyond recognition. I, sir, am a knight, puzzled by the ways things go toward me and back of me, and finally into my mouth and my head and red blood. Oh, damn these things that try to maim me. This armor, fooled, alive in itself. 5. The hermit said dance, and I danced. I was always meeting hermits on the road who said what I was to do, and I did it, or got angry and didn't, knowing always was not expected of me. She electrocuted herself with her own bath water. I pulled the plug, and it was darkness, the hermit said, deeper than any hallow. It was not searching the Grail or finding it that prompted me. It was playing the fool killer along at my back, playing the fool. I know that the cup or the dish or the knights I fought didn't have anything to do with it. Fool killer and I were fishing in the same ocean, and at the end of whose line, I asked him once, when I met him in my shadow. You asked the wrong question, and my shadow jumped up and beat itself against a rock. Or rather, the wrong questions to the wrong person, at the end of whose line I now lie hanging. 7. No visible means of support. Grail hung there like June berries in October or something I felt or forgotten. There was a palace and an ocean I was in, a ship that cast its water on the tide, a Grail, a real Grail, snark-hungry. The Grail hung there with a seagull circling round it, and the pain of my existence soothed. Fool, they sang in voices more like angels watching. Fool. The Book of Lancelot. Tony, another Tony, all the deer and all the forests of Britain could not pay for the price of this dish. Lancelot took his chance on this, heard the adulterous sparrows murmuring in the adulterous wood, willing to pay the price of this with his son and his own body. More simply, your heavy hands and all the deer in Britain a Grail searcher has need. 2. Walking on the beach, and you both hear the sound the ocean makes. The sailors at Chihuahua, Java, burning oil at their backs, swimming for their life. You say, and he says, and meaningless says, beach is ocean, Grail at .029, and the slick of the thing, music. Waves brushing past the beach as if they wanted to be human. The sailors screaming. Walking on the beach, fondly or not fondly, they hear the sound the ocean makes. 3. Nobody's stranger than the stranger coming to dinner. You can imitate anything or anybody. When they start climbing up the back of the old Flash, the runner who had simply hit a single that almost passed him, time to quit, I'll never play again. Almost saw the cup. Lancelot, his eyes so filled with tears. 4. Love cannot exist between people. Trial balloons. How faded the whole thing is. It is as if there exists a large beach with no one on it. Each is calling to each's on the path, essentially ocean. You know, Graham, how I love you and how you love me. But nothing can stop the roar of the tide. The Grail, not there, becomes the light which is not able to be there like a lighthouse or a spindrift. No, Graham, neither of us can stop the pulse or the beat of it, the roar. 5. Lancelot fucked Guinevere only 4 times. He fucked Elaine 20 times, at least. She had a child and died from it. Hero Lancelot feared the question, what is the Holy Grail, which nobody asked him. All the snow on the mountain, it was for a time his question to answer. 6. The Irish have only invented 3 useful things, Boston, the Holy Grail, and fairies. This is not to imply that Boston, the Holy Grails, and fairies do not exist. They do and are to be proved in time as much as the package of Lucky Strike cigarettes you smoke or the village your grandmother came from. Jack, jokes aside, is very much like entering a forest, perilous. No place for Lancelot, who has killed more men than you Irish will ever see. 7. He has all the sense of fun of an orange. Gawain once explained to a trusted friend, his sense of honor is barely too much to carry his body. The horse he rides on, Dada, will never go anywhere. Sharp, in the palace he wanders among intellectual servants. He sings a song to himself as he goes to look for the thing. Grail will not be his, obviously. The Book of Guinevere. Lance, let's figure out where we stand, on the beach of some inland sea which cannot be called an ocean. The river in back of us is green. The river is red. Down it flows what is not the Grail Mistress, several magicians and dead seagulls. Harp on the same theme. Play the wild chorus over and over again. The music magic. Lady of the lake, I hate you. Cannot stand your casual way the wind blows. Listen, I am Guinevere. The question is pretty simple. I would never have been admitted to the Grail Castle, but if I would have asked it, why did you admit me to the Grail Castle? That would have stopped him. I am sick of the invisible world and all of its efforts to be visible. What eyes, yours or mine, are worth seeing it? Or, Lance, what eyes, mine and yours, when looking at each other, we forget the Grail Castle for a moment at least, make it worth seeing it. 3. Good Friday now. They are saying Mass in the Grail Castle. The dumb old king awaits the scourge, the vinegar, the lance for the umpty-umpth time. Not Christ, but the substitute for Christ, as Christ was the substitute. You knights go out to tear him from the cross like he was a fairy princess turned into a toad. The cup that keeps the blood bled into, is a hoax, a hole. I see it disappear. 4. What you don't understand are depths and shadows. They grow, Lance, though the sun covers them in a single day. Grails here, grails there, grails tomorrow, a trick of light. A trick of light streaming from the cup. You say, knowing only the unbent rock, the shells that somehow survive their maker, the depths and shadows are all beside all of this, somehow returning. Each man to what of him is not bone and skin and mortal, the moon, which is beautiful in the skull of the earth, streaming. 5. Sometimes I wonder what you were looking for. The Monday after Christ died, the women came to his tomb, and the angels said, what are you looking for? Sensible question. The bloody lance that pierced his side, the scourge, the vinegar, it all turned into relic. Why beat a dead horse? The women, who were no better than they should be, hadn't seen it. If there really was a Christ only, this will happen in the Grail Castle. Boo! I tell you all, scapegoats and half-ghosts, you do not know what is going to appear. It's going to appear in the proper place like you, Lance. Salt Lake City, New York, Jerusalem, hell, the celestial city. Waking and changing like a light in some dark harbor. Damn the ghosts of the unbent flame. The pixies, the kobolds, the dwarves eating jewels underground. The lives that seem to have nothing to do except to make you have adventures. Naked, I lie in this bed. The spooks around me animate themselves. Boo! Hello! Lance, the cup is heavy. Drop the cup. 7. The teacup Christ bled into. You were so polite, Lance. All your heroes are so polite they would make a cat scream. I dreamed last night your body had become a gigantic adventure. Wild horses could not tear it away from itself. I was the whole earth you were traveling over. Rock, sand, and water. Christ and this little teacup were always between us. I was a witch, Lance. Your body was not the earth. Yours was not wild horses or what wild horses could tear. Politely your body woke me up and I saw the bent morning. Go to jail. Go directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. And the naked sound of the body sounds like a trumpet through all this horse shit. You do not go to jail. You stay there unmoved by what anything physical or metaphysical policemen do. You behave like Gandhi. Your magic will be better than their magic. You wait the time with hunger. Strike against the real things. The colonial Hengist and Horsa. The invasion of Britain was the invasion of the spirit. 2. Wohin auf das Auge blicket, Moor und Heide ringsherum, Vogelsang uns nicht erquicket, I can stay in Kahlen. Lost in the peril of their own adventure, Grail searchers in Konzentrationslager. A Jew stole the Grail the first time, and a Jew died into it. This is the history of Britain. The politics of the world of spooks is as random as that of the Mesopotamian kingdom. Merlin, who saw 2 ways at least of the river, bed of the river, American Ausgeschlossen. 3. The tower he built himself, some kind of shell he made from his hide. He pretended he was a radio station and listened to Grail music all day and all night, every day, every night. Shut up there by a treachery which was not quite his own. He could not remember whose treachery it was. He predicted the future of Britain. The land is hollow, he said. It consists of caves and holes so immense that eagles or nightingales could not fly in them. Love the Grail, he said, no matter what happened. 4. Otherwise, everything was brilliant. Flags loose in the wind, a tournament for the people. Disengagement is from the throat to the loin, or the sand to the ocean. The flags of another country. The flags hover in the breeze. Mary Baker Eddy in her attempt to slake Thursdays. Sarita, oh how chill the hill is with snow on it. What a semblance of flags. 5. Then the thought of Merlin became more than imprisoned Merlin. A jail castle was built on these grounds. Sacco and Vanzetti and lion-hearted Richard and Dillinger, who somehow almost lost the Grail, political prisoners, willing to rise from their graves. The enemy is in your own country. He wrote that when Gawain and Percival and almost everybody else was stumbling around after phantoms. There was a Grail, but he did not know that. Jailed. 6. That's it, Clyde, better hit the road, farewell. That's it, Clyde, better hit the road. You're not a frog, you're a horny toad. Goodbye, farewell, adios. The beach reaching its ultimate instant, a path over the sand, and the toad frog growing enormous in the shadows of the fogged-in waters, the Lady of the Lakes, monstered. This is not the end because like a distant bullet, the ship comes in. I don't see anybody on it. I am Merlin, imprisoned in a branch of the Grail Castle. Heimat, du bist wieder mein. Heimat ohne Ferne. You were called to the phone. You were called to the phone to predict what will happen to Britain. The great silver towers she gave you. What you were in among. You were called to predict the exact island that your ancestors came from. Carefully now. Will there be a Grail or a bomb which tears the heart out of things? I say there will be no fruit in Britain in 7 years unless something happens. End of the Book of Merlin. This is the Book of Galahad. Backyards and barn lawns. If he only could have stopped talking for a minute, he would have understood the prairies of American. Whitman, I mean, not Galahad, who were both born with the same message in their throats. Contemplating America from Long Island Sound, or the Grail from Purity is foolish, not in a bad sense, but foolish, as if words and poetry could save you. Indians who still walked around the plains were dead, and the Grail searchers were dead, and neither of them knew it. Innocent in the wind, the sound of the real bird's voice, invented. 2. Galahad was invented by American spies. There's no reason to think he existed. There are agents in the world who are true and false and laughable. Galahad laughed when he was born because his mother's womb had been so funny. He laughed at the feel of being a hero, pure. For as he laughed, the flesh fell off of him, and the Grail appeared like a flashlight, whatever was to be seen underneath. We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. Damned Australians marching to Greece on a fool's errand. The cup said, "Drink me," so he drank, shrinking or rising in size depending on how the bullets hit us. Galahad had a clearer vision, was an SS officer in that war, or a nervous Albanian, say, trying to outline the cup through his glasses. The Grail lives and hovers like bees around a camp, and their love, their corpses, honey makers. Damned Australians marching into Greece on a fool's errand. 4. To drink that hot liquor from that cold bitter cup. I'll tell you the story. Galahad, bastard son of Elaine, was the only one allowed to find it. Found it in such a way that the dead stayed dead, the wasteland stayed a wasteland. There were no shoots from the briars of the elm trees. I'll teach you to love the ranger command, to hold a 6-shooter and never to run. The briar and the elm, not being human, endure the long walk down somebody's half-dream. Terrible. 5. Transformation, then. Becoming not a fool of the Grail like the others were, but an arrow, raw and fog that rose up and down in the marshes, losing whatever soul he had in the shadows. Tears of ivy, the whole lost land coming out to meet this soldier, soul dire in a land of those who had to stay alive. Cheat of dream, monster, casually, ghostlessly, leaving the story. And the land was the same, and the story was the same, no hand creeping out of the shadows. 6. The Grail was merely a cannibal pot, where some were served and some were not. This Galahad thinks. The Grail was mainly the upper air, where men don't fuck and women don't stare. This Galahad thinks. The Grail's alive as a starling at dawn that shatters the earth with her noisy song. This Galahad thinks. But the Grail is there like a red balloon and carries him up with it past the moon. Poor Galahad thinks. Blood in the stars and food on the ground. The only connection that ever was found is what rich Galahad thinks. 7. The Grail is as common as rats or seaweed, not lost but misplaced. Someone searching for a letter that he knows is around the house and finding it, no better for the letter. The Grail country damp now from a heavy rain, and growing pumpkins or artichokes or cabbage or whatever they used to grow before they started worrying about the weather. Man has finally no place to go but upward. Galahad's Testament. Book of the Death of Arthur. He who sells what isn't his'n must pay it back and go to prison. Jay Gould, Cornelius Vanderbilt, or some other imaginary American millionaire selling short. The heart is short too. Beats 1 1/4 beats a second or something like that. Fools everyone. I am king of a great city in the history books called Camelot. The door by no human hand open. 2. Marilyn Monroe being attacked by a bottle of sleeping pills, like a bottle of angry hornets. Lance me, she said. Lance me I did. I don't work there anymore. The answer question always the same. I cannot remember when I was not a king. The Sword in the Rock is like a children's story told by my mother. He took her life, and when she floated on a barge, or joined a nunnery, or appeared dead in all the newspapers, it was his shame, not mine. I was king. 3. In the episode of La Demoiselle Sacheres, for example, 1 stag, 1 brachet, and 1 fay, all of which properly belong to the essentials of the adventures of a single hero, by a judicious arrangement supplied 3 knights with difficult tasks, and the maiden herself wanders off with a different lover. So here, by means of 1 hunt and 1 ferry ship, 3 heroes are transported to 3 different places. When they awake, the magic ship has vanished, and sorry adventures await them all. None of them is borne by the boat, as we should naturally expect, for the love of fay. Plainly, we are dealing with materials distorted from their original form. 4. The faint call of drums, the little signals, folks half true and half false in a different way than we are half true and half false. A meal for us there lasts a century. Out to greet us, I Arthur, Rex quandam et futurus, with a banjo on my knee. I, Arthur, shouting to my bastard son, it is me you were trying to murder. Listening to them, they who have problems too, the faint call of them. They would stay in Camelot for a century. The faint call of me. 5. I have forgotten why the Grail was important. Why somebody wants to reach it like a window you thrown open. What would it mean? What knight would fight the Gorms and Cobblies to touch it? I remember a lot about the kingdom, the peace I was going to establish. The wrong notes, Merlin told me, were going to kill me. Dead on arrival, Avalon has supermarkets, where the dead trade bones with the dead, where the heroes asking nothing. 6. The blackness remains. It remains even as fisherman has done what he can do to protect home and mother. It is there like the sun. Not lost battles or even defeated people, but blackness alive with itself, at the sides of our fires, at home with us. And the monstrous anti-Grail none of those knights could have met or invented is real as tomorrow. Not the threat of death, they could have conquered that. Not even bad magic. It is a simple whole running from one thing to another. No kingdom will be saved. No restitution. 7. A noise in the head of the prince. A noise that travels a long ways. Past chances, broken pieces of lumber. Time future, the golden head said. Time present. Time past. And the slumbering apprentice never dared to tell his master. A noise. It annoys me to look at this country. Dead branches. Leaves unable even to grimly seize their rightful place in the tree of the heart. Annoys me. Arthur, king and future king. A noise in the head of the prince. Something in God language. In spite of all of this horse shit, this uncomfortable music.